The room was cold and bright and full of small sounds. A monitor beeped. Air moved through a tube with a soft push and sigh. Mira Ravensdale sat in the chair that hurt her back and held Gideon Haverly's hand with both of hers. His skin was warm but thin, like paper warmed by a lamp. She rubbed his knuckles with her thumb and talked about ordinary things. The cat had finally stopped clawing the sofa. The neighbor had brought lentil soup. The factory floor ran fine today. She spoke slowly, as if each word could lay a blanket over him. Gideon opened his eyes for a second. "You're still here," he whispered. "I'm here," she said. "All night." He tried a smile. It was small, but it was his. He looked at the corner where the clock ticked, and then at her again. "Will Nolan come?" Myra's throat tightened, but she pulled out her phone. She dialed their son and put it on speaker so Gideon could hear. The call rang over the beeps. Nolan picked up with music in the background and a short laugh in his voice. "Hey, Mom. What's up?" "It's your dad," she said. "It would mean a lot if you came." There was a pause, then a sigh. "Mom, it's just hours of staring at machines. They said he's not in danger tonight, right? I'll come when they have a plan." Brenna Larkspur's voice floated in from Nolan's side. "Tell them we already sent flowers." Mira kept her voice even. "He's asking for you." "I can't leave now," Nolan said. "I'll check in tomorrow." "Okay," Mira said. She did not argue. She put the phone near Gideon's ear. "He loves you," she added softly, because someone had to say it. Gideon closed his eyes and listened. His fingers twitched once in her palm. When the call ended, he breathed slowly, as if saving strength. Nurse Celeste Navarro came in with quiet steps and a soft blue blanket. She checked the lines, the numbers, the bag on the pole. She worked fast but gentle, like someone folding a shirt she didn't own. "You need water," Celeste told Mira, pointing to the cup. "And this blanket. You're cold." "I'm fine," Mira said out of habit. Celeste set the blanket over Myra's knees anyway. "People who say I'm fine have been sitting too long," she said with a small smile. "I'll get you tea." After a while, Gideon opened his eyes again. They were clearer than before, sharp in the bright light. "Celeste," he said, words careful. "I need to sign one more thing." Celeste looked at him. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "I'm sure. Tonight." Mira sat up. "Should we wait until morning?" Gideon shook his head and caught his breath. "Not morning." Celeste checked his pupils and asked him simple questions to confirm he was alert. His name, Myra's name, the date, where he was. He answered each one. Celeste stepped into the hall and made 2 calls. One to the hospital patient advocate to request a notary. One to Dax Morello, Gideon's attorney, to say a final document was coming and witnesses would be ready. She came back in and knelt by Mira. "He's in his right mind," she said quietly. "If he wants this, we do it now. You cannot witness because you may be in the will. I'll ask another staff member who is not a beneficiary." Mira swallowed and nodded. "Whatever he asks." A respiratory therapist came in and introduced herself. The patient advocate arrived with a small black notary stamp. She spoke to Gideon face to face. "Sir, do you understand what you're signing?" "Yes," Gideon said. "I understand. Are you signing this by choice?" "Yes." "Can you say your name for me and today's date?" He did. Celeste dialed the attorney on speaker, set the phone near Gideon, so he could hear the calm voice read the page line by line. It was slow and careful. The notary watched the clock and wrote notes. Gideon asked to pause once to sip water through a sponge. His hands trembled. Celeste steadied the clipboard for him. He signed his name with a shaky but readable line. The therapist signed as witness. Celeste signed as second witness. The notary stamped the page. The sound was a clean press, a small thunder. Mira did not ask what the words said. She kept her eyes on Gideon and his hands and the way his breath took effort. She thought about the first gloves he brought home from the shop, the smell of heat and metal, the pride on his face when the company made its first profit. She thought about Nolan at 8 years old, sitting on Gideon's shoulders at the county fair, sticky with cotton candy, shouting with joy. Celeste placed the papers in a thick envelope, sealed it, then slid it into a tamper-proof pouch with a zip strip. She filled out a short chain of custody form and had the patient advocate sign next to the time. "I will secure this now," Celeste said, "and our courier will deliver it in the morning to Mr. Morello's office. Do you want to see the outside label?" Mira nodded. The label had Gideon's name, the date, the time, and the attorney's address. It also had Celeste's neat handwriting. "Sealed in room 414, witnessed by staff, capacity confirmed." Mira traced the letters with her eyes. Thank you, she said. Her voice shook. Thank you for treating him like a person, not a bed number. Celeste's smile was small and real. He is someone's whole world, she said. That matters. The hours slid. The monitor kept time. Sometimes Gideon slept. Sometimes he woke and looked at Mira like he was memorizing her face. They spoke in short lines that fit his breath. Remember the blue door? He asked once. She laughed softly. Their first apartment had a door the color of a summer sky, and the paint had chipped in perfect coins. They had kept one chip in a matchbox for years. Near dawn, his breaths grew longer between, and the push and sigh of the machine felt heavy. A doctor came in and checked him and spoke in that careful voice doctors learn so they don't break in front of families. We can keep him comfortable, he said. We're here with you. Celeste stood on the other side of the bed and put a hand on Myra's shoulder, so lightly it felt like a promise. Gideon's last words were almost a breath. Show up, he whispered. It was not a command, not a curse. It was a simple thing like turn off the light or close the window. Mira leaned down so he could feel the warmth of her cheek on his. I'm here, she said again. I'm here. When the room finally went quiet, it did not feel sudden. It felt like a tide going out, slow and sure, leaving wet sand and shells that glowed in the early light. The doctor gave the time. Celeste turned a few machines off. Someone pulled the curtain halfway. Mira sat very still with Gideon's hand in hers until it grew cool. She kissed each knuckle and laid his hand down like she was folding a shirt she had just ironed. Celeste came back with forms that had boxes to tick and lines to sign. She did not rush Mira. She gathered the tube and the tape with care so no sound was harsh. I'll walk the paper to the safe now, she said. The courier will meet me at 7. Mr. Morello will receive it before noon. Mira nodded and wiped her face. The world felt thin, like tracing paper over a drawing. She stood, then sat, then stood again. Celeste put the blanket around her shoulders, the same soft blue as before. Do you want me to call anyone? Celeste asked. Mira looked at her phone. The last call to Nolan sat at the top of the screen. She pressed it and listened to it ring and ring. She did not leave a message. Not yet. Outside the window, a thin pink line broke across the city. Morning was coming whether they were ready or not. Mira stood at the glass and placed her palm against it. The pain felt cool. She thought about how heat and pressure make glass strong, and how the cooling has to be controlled, or the whole sheet shatters. She did not know what Gideon had written in that sealed envelope. She only knew he had looked at her with clear eyes and chosen his last act with care. Celeste paused at the door with the pouch in her hand. I'll see this through, she said. I know, Mira replied. The door closed softly. The room was quiet except for a clock and the hum of things that no longer had a job to do. Mira took one last look at Gideon's face, smoothed his hair, and whispered, I'll show up. Then she stepped into the hallway, where the light was harsher and the floor was colder, and began the long walk toward whatever came next. The funeral was small. The sky was clear but felt heavy. People hugged Mira Ravensdale and said the same soft words. He was a good man. He taught me my first real job. He was fair. She nodded and thanked them. She felt the day move like slow water. She did not see Nolan Rook or his wife, Brenna Larkspur. They sent a message in the morning. A work crisis, flight's too late. We'll come by soon. At home that night, the house was too neat. Every casserole sat on the counter with a note and a name. The sympathy cards stood like small white doors on the mantel. Mira washed 2 cups, dried them, and put them back. She sat in Gideon Haverly's chair and folded her hands the way he did when he listened. The silence rang. The next afternoon, the phone buzzed. Mira, it's Dax Morello, the attorney said. His voice was calm and careful. The hospital courier delivered a sealed document pouch this morning, labeled with Gideon's name and last night's date and time. There is a chain of custody form and a notary log. I'll need you here to open it. Myra's stomach dipped, like the first step on a dark stair. Is it what I think it is? It appears to be a later will and a revocation codicil, Dax said. Legally, we open it with you present. If Nolan will be involved, he should be here as well. Call him, Mira said. Set a time. Dax sighed softly. I can call him, but it will be better if it comes from you. Mira looked at the mantel, at the cards lined up like standing guards. I'll ask him to come. 2 days passed. On the second evening, the doorbell rang. Nolan and Brenna came in with careful faces and a bag of pastries no one would eat. Nolan hugged his mother quickly and looked around the room as if the house might hand him answers. He noticed the framed photo of Gideon at the factory, hard hat under his arm, sun on his face. He glanced away. Brenna set the pastry bag down and pulled out a small notebook. The cover said notes and numbers in gold letters. "We thought it would help to list everything," she said, trying for light. "Just to be organized." Mira nodded and poured tea. The air smelled like lemon and paper. She told them about the call from Dax. "There is a sealed pouch," she said. "It came from the hospital. There is also a notary log." Nolan frowned. "From the hospital? When?" "The last night," Mira said. "He signed something." Nolan's mouth tightened. "And no one told me?" Then, softer, as if the room could hear him. "I would have come if I knew it was legal stuff." Mira set his cup near him and did not speak. They went to Dax's office the next morning. The building was glass and dark stone, quiet even with the street traffic outside. Dax met them at the door, shook hands, and led them to a conference room with a long table and a view of the river. On the table sat a gray, tamper-proof pouch with a red zip strip. A form was clipped to it with neat boxes checked and times written to the minute. "Thank you for coming," Dax said. "Before we open this, I want to be clear about process. The first will is on file. This appears to be a second will with a revocation clause. We will read both. If the second will is valid, it governs." The door opened again. Nurse Celeste Navarro stepped in wearing plain clothes and a lanyard from the hospital. She looked younger outside the bright white halls, but her eyes were the same steady ones from that long night. Dax nodded to her. Ms. Navarro witnessed the signing and maintained the initial chain of custody until the courier took it, he said. "I asked her to attend in case there are questions." Nolan stiffened. "Why is a nurse here?" Celeste met his look without heat. "Because your father asked me to help him do one last thing the right way," she said. "And I did." Dax slid the pouch toward the center of the table. "I will break the seal now." He cut the red strip with small scissors and opened the pouch. Inside were 2 envelopes and a thin folder. He pulled out the first envelope. "This is the original will," he said, opening it. He read slowly and clearly. Mira had heard these words before. The house to her, equal shares of liquid assets to Mira and Nolan, control of the company to Mira with a plan for a slow transfer. It was familiar and calm like a path they had already walked. Nolan relaxed in his chair. He looked at Brenna. She gave him a tiny, relieved smile. Then Dax lifted the second envelope. It was labeled in Celeste's careful handwriting with the date and time, 2:13 a.m. He placed the notary log beside it. 2 witness lines were signed, Celeste Navarro, RN and T, Jensen, RRT. The notary seal sat under the date. Dax set the audio transcript next to it. "This is the later will," he said. "Executed in the ICU. 2 qualified witnesses. Independent notary. Capacity confirmed by questions and answers recorded at the time." Nolan's jaw twitched. He was dying. Dax did not flinch. "Capacity is not the same as comfort. Your father answered the required questions correctly and spoke to his attorney by phone. Both witnesses and the notary attest that he knew what he was doing." He opened the second will and began to read. The language was simple and clean. Gideon revoked the earlier distributions and restated his gifts. He left the house and control of the company to Mira. He directed a large share to a new fund named the Night Watch Trust for ICU family rooms, paid caregiver leave for Whitlow employees, and nursing scholarships. He set aside a portion for Nolan, but only on certain terms. Dax looked up. "The details of those terms are here. We can go through them line by line." Nolan leaned forward. His voice went sharp. "What terms?" "Conditions," Dax said. "They are measurable. They are not meant to punish, but to teach and to prove. They speak to showing up." Brenna shifted in her chair. "This is unfair," she said. "He waited until the last minute and changed everything. How are we supposed to trust a midnight decision?" Celeste placed her hands flat on the table. "It wasn't a mood," she said. He was clear. He asked questions. He paused to breathe, then chose his words again. "He asked me to witness because I am not a beneficiary. He did not want a friend or family member to sign. He wanted clean paper." Mira stared at the pages as if they might burn her fingers. She felt pride and fear at the same time. Gideon had always played a long game. He never raised his voice, but he set rules you could see and touch. Nolan turned to Dax. "Can we fight this?" "You can contest," Dax said. "Anyone can file. But I have the notary log, the transcript, 2 witness statements, and the hospital record of alertness. The conditions are objective, not vague." A judge will ask if your father knew what he was doing and whether the witnesses were qualified and independent. The answer appears to be yes. Brenna whispered, "We should at least try." Her eyes were bright and fast. Judges hate tricks. Dax folded his hands. Judges hate confusion. There is none here. Your father left a path. You may walk it or you may refuse it. The law will hold either choice. Nolan's mouth opened and then closed. He stared at the river and the tiny white boats moving like slow birds. He rubbed his forehead. He looked tired in a new way. Mira spoke at last. Her voice was low but steady. "Your father trusted you with a decision," she said to Nolan. "He trusted you enough to make it hard. He did not lock the door. He put a key where you can reach it." No one moved. Outside, a barge passed, silent behind glass. Inside, the room felt like a held breath. Dax slid a thin letter from the folder. "There is also this," he said. "A personal note from Gideon to each of you. You may read them privately, or we can read them together." Mira nodded at Nolan. "You first." Nolan took the envelope with his name on it. He did not open it. He held it the way a person holds a fragile cup. He stood. "I need air," he said. "Take your time," Dax said. "We are not rushing." Nolan stepped into the hall. Brenna stayed in her chair, the gold letters on her notebook catching the light. Celeste watched the door and then looked back at Mira. For one brief second, the two women understood each other completely. The long night, the hard choice, the cost. When Nolan came back, he sat down again. He slid the unopened letter into his pocket. "Tell me the terms," he said, voice flat. "All of them." Dax looked at Mira. She nodded once. Dax put a finger on the page and began to read. The words were simple and could not be bent. The rules were clear. The path was narrow and straight. Mira clasped her hands to keep them from shaking. She did not know which would be worse, Nolan refusing and walking out, or Nolan agreeing and being angry every step. She thought of Gideon's last words. "Show up." The room felt colder and brighter at once. "This," Dax said softly, "changes everything." Dax Morello read the words slowly, so no one could say they missed a line. Nolan Rook must do 3 things within 12 months. Finish 200 hours as a volunteer in an ICU family lounge, attend 6 grief counseling sessions, and work 6 months on the factory floor under a foreman not chosen by him, Reeve Callahan. If he refused or failed, his entire share would go to the Night Watch Trust for ICU families and nursing students. The room went quiet. You could hear the air vent hum. Brenna Larkspur spoke first. "This is punishment." Dax shook his head. "It is a door. It is hard, but it is open." Nolan felt heat rise up his neck. "He waited until the last night to measure me?" Nurse Celeste Navarro kept her voice gentle. "He measured what matters, showing up." They left without slamming the door, but the ride home felt loud anyway. Brenna talked fast about lawyers and judges and setting a precedent. Nolan stared at the road. Every streetlight looked like a clock. That night, Nolan stood in the factory's dark parking lot and looked through the windows. Machines slept. The office lights were off. He remembered being 8, holding Gideon Haverly's hand while men in dusty shirts laughed, and someone lifted Nolan onto a forklift for a photo. He felt anger, and then under it something worse, shame. In the morning he called Dax. "If I start the hours," he asked, "who signs them?" "Hospital Volunteer Services," Dax said. "And the ICU charge nurse." "Celeste," Nolan said. "Yes," Dax replied. "Celeste." He went to the hospital that afternoon. Volunteer Services gave him a badge and a simple blue vest. Celeste met him at the ICU doors with a clipboard. "Rules," she said. "You don't touch medical equipment. You don't give medical advice. You don't make promises. You offer coffee, blankets, phone chargers, quiet company, directions, rides, and time. You write your name and your hours. You show up when you say you will." He nodded. "Okay. Also," she added, "eat something. Volunteers faint more than you think." The family lounge was a room with soft chairs and a microwave that smelled like popcorn. A corkboard held notes. "Thank you for the blankets. Please label your food. No overnight sleeping on the couch." A woman sat in the corner with red eyes and a sweater on inside out. "Do you need anything?" Nolan asked. She blinked like she hadn't heard a human voice in hours. "A charger," she whispered. "For a phone that never rings." He found a spare charger and plugged it in. He made tea. He sat nearby, not too close. When the doctor came to speak with her, Nolan stood and left the room, then came back and handed her a box of tissues without looking at her face too long. She said thank you in a voice that sounded like a scraped knee. A teenage girl came in carrying a backpack and a book with bent corners. Is this where you wait? She asked. Yes, he said. Who are you here for? My dad, she said. He had a stroke. She looked at Nolan's badge. Do you work here? I'm a volunteer, he said. I can show you where the bathroom is. And the good vending machine. She smiled a little. The good one. This is a will, he said. It contains a revocation clause that cancels any prior wills and a set of directives for the estate. He looked up. Mr. Haverly was lucid. I spoke to him by phone as he reviewed each paragraph. He knew what he was doing. Nolan's hands curled into fists. What did he do? Dax's voice stayed even. He secured control of the company and the home to Ms. Ravensdale, as before. He created a fund for families in ICU units and for nursing students. And he changed the terms of your share. Brenna leaned forward. Changed how? Dax folded his hands. He did not disinherit you. He placed your share behind conditions that can be met within 12 months. They are specific. They are measurable. They cannot be faked with money. Nolan laughed, but there was no humor in it. So I have to jump through hoops for my own father's money? Mira looked at Dax, then at Celeste, then at the neat pages on the desk. She thought of Gideon's last words, how simple they were. Show up. She felt a strange calm spread through her chest. It felt like stepping onto a floor you trust after walking on ice. Brenna's voice went quick and sharp. We can fight this, right? Conditional wills are messy. Judges hate them. We can say he wasn't in his right mind. He was in pain, it was late. Dax slid a thin packet toward them. It held copies of witness statements, a notary log, and a short audio transcript of capacity questions. He anticipated a challenge, Dax said. He made it clean. Nolan stared at the packet, then at Celeste. Why did you get involved? You're a nurse. I am a witness, she said. Not a beneficiary. I helped because he asked, and because it was my duty to make sure it was done right or not done at all. Silence settled like dust. In that silence, Mira could hear the small tick of a clock and the soft brush of an air vent. She could hear Gideon's voice in her head, plain and steady. Do the thing in front of you. Don't flinch. Dax tapped the top page of the new will. There is a letter addressed to you, Mr. Rook. It is attached to the terms. I can read it aloud, or you can read it yourself. Nolan did not take it. His jaw worked as if he was chewing something tough and tasteless. Brenna whispered, we should go. We need a plan. Mira finally spoke. Her voice was calm. We will hear the terms, she said. All of them. Dax nodded and lifted the page to read. The words that followed were clear and simple, and they would change the next year of all their lives. But in that exact moment, what changed first was the room. It felt different. It felt like a door had opened and a hard, honest light had come in. Month 11 felt like a tight drum. Every step made a sound. Nolan Rook counted hours in his head the way a child counts blocks. 187. 192. 198. He kept the blue vest in his car so he could go to the hospital straight from the factory. His hands were rough now. His shoulders were strong in a quiet way. He still woke at night with the word pointless biting his tongue. He did not say it out loud anymore. At the factory, Reeve Callahan watched without smiling much. Cut slower, he said. Heat even. Cool even. Don't teach the glass bad habits. Nolan learned the rhythm. Score, lift, break, edge, wipe, breathe. He learned the smell of a clean cut, and the small song a pain sings when it is true. He still made mistakes. He did not hide them. He swept, logged the waste, and tried again. At the hospital, Nurse Celeste Navarro signed his log with clean, straight letters. 2 hours, she would say. 4 hours. She did not praise. She did not scold. She just kept the line straight. One night the lounge was full and loud with quiet crying. A man in a suit said, "This is useless. Sitting here does nothing." The words stabbed Nolan in the ribs because they were his own from months ago. He brought the man water and did not argue. Later, when the room calmed, Nolan said, "It feels like nothing." "It isn't." The man nodded once, a slow, tired nod. The grief counselor checked off his 6th session. "What changed?" she asked. "I did," Nolan said. "But not fast. Like heat and cooling." "Controlled," she said. "Controlled," he agreed. At home, Brenna Larkspur moved like a guest who was running late. She ate standing up. She said, "Finish this and be done with it. Life is waiting." He did not know how to answer that. The work in the lounge and the shop did not feel like a detour anymore. It felt like the road itself. One morning there was a note by the coffee machine. I need space to think. Staying with my sister for a while. It was not cruel. It was not kind. It was a fact. He folded the note into a small square and put it in his wallet. He went to work on time. On the last night of his hours, Mira Ravensdale walked into the family lounge carrying a tin of lemon bars. Celeste says they are too sweet, she told Nolan. So I brought 2 tins. Celeste rolled her eyes and said, I will suffer. They laughed, and for a moment the room felt like a kitchen instead of a waiting room. A teenage girl from weeks ago came in with a backpack. Her father had woken, then slipped back, then woke again. She saw Nolan and ran over. They're moving him out of ICU tomorrow, she said. They said I can help pack his things. She looked at the blue vest. I'm glad you were here. I'm glad you came, he said. When she left, he signed his name and the time. Celeste looked at the line. 200, she said. The number sat there, simple and complete. She wrote her name beside it, and then she looked at him. Go home, she said. Sleep. He did not sleep. He sat in his car in Myra's driveway until the porch light clicked off. He thought about Gideon Haverly's last words. Show up. He thought about money like water that could either flood a room or keep a garden alive. He thought about the trust in nurses and the way a cold can of soda had made a tired mother smile for 2 seconds. The next week, the 6 months on the floor ended. Reeve handed him the final form with his thick, careful pen. You learned, Reeve said. Don't stop because the paper stops. I won't, Nolan said. They met at Dax Morello's office on a gray morning. The river looked like steel. Mira sat straight, hands folded. Celeste sat by the window with a paper cup. Reeve wore his work boots and a clean shirt that still looked like him. Brenna did not come. Dax checked each condition twice. 200 hours. 6 counseling sessions. 6 months in the shop under independent supervision. He looked up. You have completed the terms. Nolan's chest felt tight. He had imagined feeling proud. Instead he felt quiet, like standing in a church when no one else is there. Dax slid a set of documents across the table. Funds are ready for transfer per the will. Nolan did not touch them. I want to make a change, he said. Mira turned her head. Dax raised an eyebrow. You cannot change the will, he said, careful. I don't want to change it, Nolan said. I want to decide what I do with my share. He took a breath. I want to keep what I need to pay off our condo and live simply for a while. The rest, I want to leave in the Night Watch Trust. Not forced. My choice. No one spoke. Even the vent seemed to pause. Celeste was the first to move. She blinked hard and looked at the window. Reeve scratched his jaw and looked down at his boots like the floor had said something polite. Mira did not smile. Her mouth trembled and then steadied. Are you sure? She asked. Yes, Nolan said. This money can buy quiet rooms and food and care for people who are breaking. It can also buy me a car I don't need. I'd rather buy the first thing. Dax opened a side drawer and took out a slim sealed envelope. He set it carefully on the table. Your father left a second letter, he said. It is not part of the will. It is a note to the trustee. He asked me to give it to you only if you made the choice you just made. He slid it across to Mira. You decide if you should read it. Mira touched the envelope like it might burn. She handed it to Nolan. His name was on it in Gideon's steady hand. He opened it. The letter was short. Son, if you choose to return part of your share to the trust, know this. I bought a small life insurance policy years ago. It pays out only if you give more than half of your share back by choice. The policy will match what you give dollar for dollar into the trust. If you keep it all, that is also fine. I will still be proud of you for working the hours. But if you give, then I will be building beside you even now. Dad. Nolan put the letter down. He covered his eyes with his hand and laughed once, a sound like a sob that changed its mind. He set the kiln and the cooling, he said. Even now. Dax cleared his throat. Then here is the trustee form. We can direct your elected portion back into Night Watch and trigger the matching policy. He paused. We will also set aside what you need for your home and basics. Your father did not wish you to be punished. He wished you to be formed. Celeste looked at Mira. We could build 2 lounges, she said softly. One here, one in the county hospital. And scholarships, Mira said. More than we planned. Reeve leaned back. And paid caregiver leave, he added. Make it bigger. 6 weeks full pay. That helps before anyone lands in a lounge. Mira nodded. We'll do it. The company can carry this. It's the work. Nolan signed the forms with a steady hand. It felt nothing like the first line he had drawn in the hospital, angry and scared. This line felt like putting a pain into a frame that fit. When they stood to leave, Dax stopped them with a small smile. "There is one more thing," he said. "The hospital asked to name the new family room in honor of Mr. Haverly." Mira shook her head. "Name it for the people who use it. Not for us." Celeste tilted her head. "Then maybe name it for the person who learned what it was for." She looked at Nolan, not with praise but with a steady nurse's gaze that sees through and past. "Call it the Rook Room. Not as a crown. As a reminder." Nolan wanted to say no. He wanted to say yes. He looked at the letter in his hand. He thought about the teenage girl and the man in the suit and the little boy who asked if his mother would come back. "Call it the Night Watch Room," he said. "Put a small plaque under it that says, 'For everyone who showed up.' That is enough." They all walked out into the gray day together. The river looked less like steel now and more like glass before a cut, flat, waiting for the right line. Nolan hugged Mira outside the door. She held on with both hands, not because she was weak, but because she could. "Come by for dinner," she said. "I made soup." "I'll bring bread," he said. He went to the factory before he went home. He stood by the tempering oven and felt the heat on his face. Reeve nodded from across the floor. "You're done," Reeve said, meaning the paper. "I'm not done," Nolan said, meaning the work. That night, he stopped by the hospital with the extra loaf. The lounge smelled like lemon and coffee. Celeste sat at the desk finishing a chart. She looked up at him and then at the clock. "You're off duty," she said. "I know," he said. "I'm just here." She smiled, small and real. "Good," she said. "So am I." He set the bread on the counter, poured water, and took a chair in the corner. No one noticed him. That was fine. He was exactly where he wanted to be. Outside, the city lights flickered on like stars you can touch. Inside, a monitor beeped. A door opened. Someone whispered, "Is anyone here?" Nolan said, in a steady voice that sounded like his father's and his own at the same time, "Yes. I'm here."